Did you know that Standard is broken? No, not again. Still. Standard is still broken. Standard, what was once Magic the Gathering's foundational constructed format, Standard, the format Wizards of the Coast has been focusing extreme efforts on making relevant for Magic players once again, Standard is broken. No, not again, but still broken after all these bans. And at the center of it is a Final Fantasy card named Vivi. During Pro Tour Final Fantasy, Is It Prowess decks that featured Vivi Ornithir made up a staggering 42% of the meta. So what was the solution? Well, we needed record bans, and also to significantly shake up the meta with a brand new set and rotation, all of which resulted in, well, let's take a look. The metagame for the most recent Arena Championship has, oh no, Is It Cauldron featuring, yep, you guessed it, Vivi Ornithir at 54% of the meta. Just look at this metagame chart. Not a single other deck had enough of a metagame share to warrant its own category. In fact, if you look at recent Standard tournament results, the top 8s of virtually every single one are positively littered with Is It Cauldrons. If you were to look closer at the metagame, directly at an Is It Cauldron deck list, you'd be forgiven for wondering if Edge of Eternity's release date had been delayed by a few weeks. You'd have to make your way over to the sideboard of most Is It Cauldron lists before you saw a single card from Edge of Eternities in them. For all its supposed recent shakeups, the sad truth is that Standard is absolutely stagnant in the first few weeks of what should be a brand new format. It's no surprise to anyone that the single strongest thing to do in Standard after the various metagame shakeups of July is broken nonsense featuring one of the most obviously broken cards that has been printed into a Standard set in a long time. Now, in my recent video in which I discussed the Standard bans, I warned that Vivi seasons of all flavors were looming on the horizon, and so far at least, that's looking to be true. It is still early in the format, of course, and even if you disagree with the strong language of declaring Standard to be broken, it's hard to deny that something has gone terribly wrong. So why is this happening? How did an obvious design mistake like Vivi ever make it to print in the first place? And what does the Vivi problem mean for the future of Standard? Most importantly, can Standard be saved, and if so, how? It is a complex subject, so settle in because we need to talk about it. But first, the job market has been brutal for a while now. If you've been stuck in job search purgatory, or if you're stuck in a job you want out of, one of the best things you can do to improve your prospects is to learn how to code. And the best way to learn how to code is to make sure that you're never bored while trying to learn. In other words, the best way to learn how to code is with Boot.dev, sponsor of today's video. Boot.dev teaches you back-end web development from start to finish in both the Python and Go programming languages, but they do this while you play your way through a role-playing game. So what better way to learn to code than that? You've learned all the magic cards, you've learned all the Pokemans, you've learned all of your favorite Baldur's Gate moves. Well, learn to code by playing a game. I just love working with Boot.dev because I wholeheartedly believe in what they're offering. Learning to code is not easy, and it doesn't do anyone any good to pretend otherwise. But while it takes effort to learn, that effort gets easier if you're having fun while you're doing it. That's what sets Boot.dev apart from the other coding courses. As you learn this valuable skill, you're also leveling up, earning XP, completing quests, and competing against other users on a global online leaderboard. If you get stuck, hit up Boots, your personal AI bear wizard, who will lead you to the right answer with guiding questions. Boot.dev is just a brilliant product. If you've been interested in coding but find the prospect of learning too daunting, then I highly recommend you give them a try. Scan this QR code or simply go to boot.dev and use my code Tolarian to get 25% off your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. That's 3 full months free. What a deal! Thank you, Boot.dev, for sponsoring this video. The Vivi problem. Vivi Orniter's power level was no secret, even back when it was first previewed in May. By now, many Magic the Gathering players have come to recognize that a card that can generate a lot of extra mana is dangerous design territory. But Vivi is a particularly egregious example of this. Its power buff ability is like prowess on steroids that got bit by a radioactive spider. Between temporary pump spells like Wild Ride and Monstrous Rage, which was intended to still be legal at the same time Vivi was in Standard, cards that grant +1/+1 counters like Proph's Eidetic Memory, and plenty of other powerful non-creature spells in the massive Standard card pool, that 0 in Vivi's power toughness box is like some kind of sick joke. What's more, players were quick to spot the wizard's synergy with Agatha's Soul Cauldron, which grants other creatures that don't start out at 0 power the same broken mana generation that Vivi gets naturally. Vivi's synergy with the Cauldron is so powerful, in fact, that the dominant Vivi Cauldron deck in Standard is neither a particularly good Vivi deck nor a particularly good Cauldron deck. The deck runs just 20 non-creature spells, most of which cost at least 2 mana and 8 of which are legendary permanents. And besides Vivi, the deck runs very few creatures with activated abilities to put under a Soul Cauldron. And yet, the deck runs 4 copies of both Vivi and Cauldron anyway. No, I'm not surprised that Vivi has broken Standard. I doubt many Magic the Gathering players are. What I am surprised by is how Vivi came to exist in the first place. While no one outside of the Final Fantasy design team knows for certain what happened during Vivi's design process, we can hazard some reasonable guesses. In my evaluation, there are 2 main problems, both of which are alarming for different reasons. First and foremost, certain designs in Final Fantasy are clearly and overtly pushed. Aside from Vivi, look at Sephiroth, Fabled Soldier, Cloud, Midgar Mercenary, as well as several other classic characters, and it's clear that the power level is higher from what we'd expect from a usual Standard set. Whether this is the result of an internal design philosophy for Universes Beyond sets, or pressures to please the owners of these outside IPs, Universes Beyond sets tend to include some pushed cards. Compare Vivi to Redshift, Rocketeer Chief from Aether Drift, both from 2025. Both have mana-producing abilities that scale with their power, but Redshift doesn't have the ability to grow its own power, and critically can't activate its mana ability the turn it comes down. Redshift's exhaust ability is splashy, but will almost never be activated, whereas Vivi's ping ability reliably ends games. Another difference is how these cards were designed. Vivi's design was made to reflect the Final Fantasy IX character and resonate with players familiar with the source material. Redshift could have had any text box, but Vivi needs to feel like Vivi. This isn't to say that it's impossible to have a unique, flavorful Universes Beyond card be balanced, but that balancing this additional design goal may lead designers to new, unproven spaces. Vivi is the only card in all of Magic with a mana-producing activated ability with no cost. No tapping, no mana, no sacrificing required. This certainly makes the card unique, but it also makes it broken when combined with Soul Cauldron. One of the biggest factors that I believe contributed to the printing of Vivi has to do with the release schedule of Standard sets that began this year. 6 Standard sets were slated for release in 2025. Aether Drift, Tarkir Dragonstorm, Final Fantasy, Edge of Eternities, Marvel's Spider-Man, and Avatar. That is a 50% increase from the release cadence that Standard sets have always had before. In other words, the Wizards research and design team has never before had to juggle this many additions to the Standard card pool. With how many new card designs are entering the format, and how many old cards are still legal in the format thanks to the 3-year rotation, I'd be shocked if the design team at Wizards wasn't stretched to capacity, or maybe even beyond capacity. I strongly feel that without these 2 issues, the Vivi Orniteer that has dominated Standard since its release would never have seen the light of day. Even worse than the Vivi problem, though, are the implications behind the Vivi problem. For as easy as it was to see Vivi coming, it's a lot harder to imagine Vivi going. The problem with the Vivi problem. The sad reality of the current state of Standard is that Vivi is likely to remain legal for quite some time. There are multiple factors that contribute to this concern. First of all, the current ban cadence precludes any action being taken to get rid of Vivi until November 24th at the absolute earliest, barring an emergency ban. Wizards' ban policy at the moment consists of standing BNR announcements every 4 months. The purpose of this is to give players plenty of time to plan around these announcements when buying and selling the strongest cards in the format. For Standard, Wizards tries to ban cards even less frequently. Their stated goal is to only ban cards from Standard once a year, and that's during the summer BNR that we just had a few weeks ago. That means Wizards will be trying their best not to ban anything else from Standard until next summer. They're going to hope that the format naturally adapts to the Vivi menace. This is made especially true because Vivi is a universes beyond card, as was always going to be true when they made the largely profit-driven decision to inject outside IP into every facet of their game. Wizards of the Coast is no longer solely beholden to their player base. They have to also appease their business partners now, which means that they have to keep Square Enix happy. I do not believe Square Enix would be thrilled if the $50 card fueling the record-breaking sales of their Magic the Gathering set were suddenly banned from the format where it's seeing the most play. Certainly not just a few months after that set hit shelves. Now, maybe Square Enix would accept Vivi being banned next summer after a full year of uninterrupted sales, but it's hard to imagine they'd be happy with the hammer hitting any sooner than that. Lastly, and perhaps most critically, the 3-year Standard rotation exacerbates the Vivi problem by half. Cards in Standard are legal for 50% longer now than they once were. If Wizards of the Coast never takes any action to axe Vivi, we'll be stuck with it for 2.5 years. It literally will not rotate until January of 2028. The 3-year rotation has also exacerbated Vivi's power level. Agatha's Soul Cauldron and Prophetic Memory, the two key combo pieces with Vivi in the Is It Cauldron deck, would both have rotated with the release of Edge of Eternities if we were not on this 3-year rotation. So given all that, what can be done about it? Where do we go from here? I wish I could provide a clear vision for how to reach a future free from these issues, but unfortunately, the path forward is not clear. It's easy to say Standard should revert to a 2-year rotation with 4 sets per year, none of which are universes beyond. Oh, and Wizards should emergency ban Vivi Ornithir. In fact, there's another universe where that is the point of this video. But the real world isn't that simple. First of all, even if these easy answers were the right answers, Wizards wouldn't walk back their decisions so soon after implementing them. Nor should they, to be honest. Standard has undergone a ton of changes in recent time, and drastic alterations on the format have diminishing returns. At a certain point, additional changes are just too confusing. Even if you did land on the right configurations of knobs and dials eventually, if you took too many tries to get there, you run a serious risk of losing players' trust. This is made more true by financial considerations. From regional championship qualifiers to just Friday Night Magic, players invest money in the cards they play at sanctioned Magic events. Vivi Ornithir is a $50 card, as is Agatha's Soul Cauldron. The Is It Cauldron deck runs 4 copies of each. A ban to either card puts Is It Cauldron pilots out $400, not to mention the cost of whatever other cards are in their deck, the majority of which have likely become completely unplayable in the new metagame. Is that reason alone to not ban a problematic card? No, of course not. But it is a cost that is undeniable when deciding how to proceed from where we are now. And this problem, by the way, came to us with the very first Standard legal Universes Beyond set. What happens when there's a card in Spider-Man, which I secretly suspect was not even designed for Standard, but was designed more for Modern and then emergency shifted to a Standard legal set, but that's another video. And what happens if there is a card in Spider-Man that's on par with Vivi? And then what about an Avatar, another Universes Beyond set? Oh, so many in a row. Even if Vivi-level design disasters occur in Universes Beyond sets only 50% of the time, that's still 3 new Vivi-level disasters every 2 years. And finally, if we did simply wipe the slate clean of these recent changes, it would not solve the problems with Standard. Many of these changes to Standard were made because Magic the Gathering players weren't playing Standard anymore. So if we go back to the way things were before, Magic's flagship format would still not be fixed because it was broken even back before these changes. It's clear we cannot move backwards. Therefore, we must look forward. What specific changes can we make to the current system that might have a fighting shot of solving some of Standard's problems? The first change I would make is to return to 4 Standard sets a year. The current 3-year rotation was not made with the current 6-set-a-year cadence in mind. Standard is already struggling with its new gigantic card pool. It's clear that something has to go. While I believe that reverting to a 2-year Standard may be what's needed in the long term, and is more likely to happen, reverting to 4 Standard sets a year eases this problem, while also addressing concerns about product fatigue and the rapid pace of current releases. The next thing that Wizards of the Coast should do is to be prepared to ban Vivi in their November announcement. They should do this regardless of their preference to only ban Standard cards once a year, and especially regardless of any pressure they may receive from Square Enix. And yes, many Magic the Gathering players may think that the Vivi situation is dire enough to warrant an emergency ban, and I wouldn't blame you for thinking that. But I do think it's important to point out that the current Standard format is still young. Izzet Cauldron is undeniably a powerful deck, one of the most powerful things to do in the format, but it's also a deck that's a known entity and already largely solved. The current iterations of Izzet Cauldron are only a few cards off from Paulo Vitor Damadorosa's Pro Tour list. It makes sense that players who are incentivized to win would gravitate toward this deck in the first few weeks of the new metagame. And honestly, at least compared to some other problematic decks of the past, at least this deck can be interpreted as being a little bit fun to play with. Who doesn't like going off with a board full of creatures and a Vivi under your cauldron? It is entirely possible that a few decks rise up to meet the Vivi moment. Mind you, I don't think that will happen. I just think we should give it a chance to happen. But frankly, even if there are other undiscovered decks in Standard right now, that doesn't change the fact that Vivi is a fundamentally broken card that the format is better off without. Unfortunately, I do not think Wizards of the Coast will ban Vivi in the November announcement. I think they will probably ban Cauldron and/or Memory in that announcement, but I do not think they will ban Vivi until next summer. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic, but that's what my gut instinct is saying will happen. I hope that I'm wrong, but I don't think that I am. Standard has serious problems that run deeper than the mere existence of Vivi. These problems, while easy to identify, are much harder to find solutions for. As a result, Standard is in a really dire spot, and as someone who genuinely loves the existence of Standard and who wholeheartedly believes in its importance to this game, I am really worried for its future. I don't know what will happen, but I know something has to happen. Something needs to change. But of course, as always, those are just my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you. What do you think of the current state of Standard, and especially if you think it's broken, how do you think it gets fixed? Let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like to see an interesting experiment with the Standard decks of today, be sure to check out our recent Shuffle Up and Play, where we pitted new Standard decks against old Modern decks to see which were really the most powerful. That video is linked in this video's description, and, if you click the eye. Hey, thanks once again to Boot.dev for sponsoring this video. Programmers have incredible earning potential. In 2024, the median salary for back-end web developers was over $100,000. But this isn't some get-rich-quick scheme. This is about learning to code, learning a skill that will meaningfully improve your life, but you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. And what you put into it with Boot.dev is going to have big rewards. Learning to code is not easy, but Boot.dev has created an entire game game where you gain XP, level up, and learn to code the best way possible by having fun. So if you're ready to start learning how to code in Go or Python, then scan this QR code or simply go to boot.dev and use my code Tolarian to get 25% off your entire first year if you choose the annual plan. That's 3 full months free. What a deal! Thank you, boot.dev, for sponsoring this video.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Today, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players!
My name's Joseph, and today I have built Hogak.
You can also tell he's a Yu-Gi-Oh player because he called it Hogak.
What do you all call it?
Hogak.
Very fancy.
Summer of the Gak.
DEI is alive and well at Tolarian Community College. We're giving job opportunities to Yu-Gi-Oh players.
I get transfer credits for this, don't worry.
I was very bored during COVID lockdown.
Let's
go.
When Prof is doing well.
Put him up.
Avison, Angel of Hope. Oh, my queen.
We literally have assigned a member of staff to making sure Tappy doesn't screw up her own commander's life tracking.
Yes, correct. It's like when you
Yeah,
train
yeah.
dogs.
Appreciate that half the table is clicker trained with White Claw.